takes her through her college years. But Linda is, if you know her and read anything and look, she is a dynamo. Never stops, gets things done. She has been a teacher, went to New Guinea, worked with native children, done everything in her church that you can possibly do, from president to choir to Bible study leader, Sunday school superintendent, teacher. Has gone in, left education in 1976 when he began a career with Mary Kay, where she won more automobiles than I've ever owned. So must have done all right. So whatever she has done, she's done with great gusto and done very well, and it is with great pleasure that we call her up here to receive her award. And it reads, Augustana Academy Alumni Association Distinguished Alumni Award, Linda Goodward Clerc, Class of 1962. Presented by the Association in tribute to outstanding achievements and contributions to profession, community, society, and church, which have reflected the spirit of Augustana Academy's motto, We Would See Jesus, July 28, 2012.
Well, thank you again, Lyle, and fellow classmates, and all of you here, really the Academy family. And I've been looking forward with great anticipation to this reunion, even though it's hard to believe that it's been it's been 54 years, actually, since I first stepped foot on the Academy campus for the first time as a young teenager. And I've been looking forward to seeing my classmates, hearing about their families, and reminiscing. I wondered who would come. Would we recognize one another? Because there were several functions, of course. I was also wondering, what would I wear? But I was thankful, however, because I can still fit into the earrings that I wore in high school. Well, when I received a phone call from Lyle Eidsness on behalf of the committee, I was very surprised and humbled. In fact, as he was talking, I was thinking how in the world I would nicely tell him that he must have the wrong person. But he said he was correct, and it was exciting news. However, the reunion now took on a new focus for me. How could I share in just a few minutes what the Academy has meant in my life, spanning these very many years? The Academy was the place where we grew up as teenagers together, studying the secular subjects with a Christian faculty in a Christian atmosphere with excellence. I knew about God and Jesus Christ when I entered the Academy, but the Academy experience was foundational in showing and teaching me to put God first in my life each and every day, and that He had a plan for me. I'm grateful to my parents for sending me to the Academy because it was a sacrifice, but which made an eternal difference in my life. The school's motto, We Would See Jesus, was evident during my 4 years at the Academy. I experienced times when the faculty and the staff showed me the character of Jesus in how they responded to me personally. I worked in the kitchen, and one day Mrs. Folger and I were the only ones there preparing lunch. And she asked me to stir and empty several large, very large, actually, glass jars full of cold soup into the pots so that it could be heated. Well, as I began to stir the soup, one of those glass jars broke, and and the sound of that breaking glass summoned Mrs. Folger all too quickly, only for her to see a river of gallons, literally gallons of soup, falling all over the counters onto the kitchen floor, and I was shaking with fear. I took one look at her when she came around the corner, and I immediately said, "Well, I didn't do it." And she just looked at me and replied, "I'll help you clean it up." And I kept my job, and I learned about grace and mercy that day. My junior year, my mom was very ill. She spent 6 weeks at Rochester. And at that very same time, I was homesick with the mumps. And my dad called the academy, and Miss Hanson agreed that I should return to the dorm, and she would care for me there. I learned about compassion. Pastor Norm also left a lasting impression when he asked me if I believed in Jesus and if I believed he died on the cross for my sins. Well, this was my freshman year, and I was so timid and quiet. Tearing up, I said, "Well, I think so." And he said, "No, Linda, you either do or you don't. Be confident and bold." How right he was, and I learned about conviction. Hard to believe, but I was also disciplined at the academy. I didn't sign out of the dorm one Saturday night, and when my name was repeatedly called over the intercom, my friend Judy Eklund Knudsen kept answering repeatedly, "She's in the shower." Well, I'll tell you, I was in hot water for several weeks after that, washing the bathroom walls every morning. And I also had to write to my parents a letter about my infraction, and I couldn't participate in any extracurricular activities, and I was campused for a week. I learned about consequences for my actions. Dolores Johnson, Colboom, and I were roommates on choir tour, and the experiences we shared of staying in individual homes were memorable. And Lois Tuntlin Sanchez was my dorm roommate for 3 years, and we shared a number of classes together. And I remember one incident in geometry class when Loie was trying to explain herself, and it wasn't clear to the teacher. And so I raised my hand and I said, "I understand her." Well, you know what? We did learn to understand one another at the academy. And we became forever friends because we spent time together and because we were taught that God's Word was relevant in every situation in life. Corrie ten Boom, a Holocaust survivor and writer, had this comment about the past. "Every experience God gives us, every person He puts in our lives is a perfect preparation for the future only He can see." God had a plan, and my experience at the academy was my springboard to my future. Throughout my life, I certainly have had happiness and success, but I also experienced heartache and trouble. And I have found, however, that it's in the valleys of life that I have grown the most, because you can never learn that Christ is all you need until Christ is all you have. There was a time in my life of discouragement and heartache, and I remember the exact day that I gave my life, my hopes and my dreams, my young daughters, and my circumstances to the Lord. I couldn't do it anymore by myself. And I quit looking ahead, and I quit looking around for answers, but instead I looked up to Him and found that Jesus is always the answer. He was and He is the source of my strength and every bit of life that is of value I owe to him. The Lord brought Wes into my life along with 3 more children. And when we married, their ages were 12, 13, 14, 16, and 17. Actually, Louisa is here with her husband, Phil Beitler, tonight, and she was the 14-year-old. And they now have 5 children of their own. And Wesley is also here tonight, and he was the oldest. He was the 17-year-old. And after Wes and I were married, the girls and I moved to Fairmont, and the first dinner we had as a blended family was memorable. Silence filled the room as the kids just stared at each other, and I thought perhaps it was the Last Supper. But you know, if your days are hemmed with prayer, they're less likely to unravel. And there was a lot of prayer going on in our home those days. And through it all, God has blessed us greatly. And Wes and I recently celebrated our 24th anniversary, and our family now numbers 25. Well, just as the Academy had chapters in its history, we also have chapters in our own lives. I was reminded of that when I was visiting my grandchildren in California several years ago. The twins were in kindergarten at the time, and they were so proud of their counting skills. And they were counting as high as they could for me. Then they asked me how old I was. And I told them, and they looked at their fingers, and they were puzzled, and they tried to count, but finally said, "Nana, that's a lot of numbers." I knew I had started a new chapter in my life. The world's view of success involves money, prestige, and fame. But what are the true signs of success from God's perspective? The issue is whether we're following His will and seeking to glorify Him in all things. And how are we using the abilities, the gifts, and opportunities He's given us? To fulfill His plan for our life, we need to know Him better, to trust Him in every area of our life, and to serve others. Oswald Chambers says that this is the meaning of being broken bread and poured out wine in real life. We all know a lot about Jesus, but the only way to know Jesus personally is to spend time with Him, to study His Word. And God does have a purpose for each of us, and how we live our life is directly related to how well we know Him. Each one of us should also ask ourselves this question: could Jesus call me His forever friend? After being critically ill 14 years ago, my focus changed. I was sensing a call from God to put my energy into helping others so that they also would see Jesus. Through a series of events that only God could orchestrate, I became the teaching director of Community Bible Study. CBS is an in-depth, non-denominational Bible study, and it's an international ministry. We are now beginning our 12th season this fall, and there are approximately 200 women registered. We also have a children's ministry from infant to pre-kindergarten. And God is changing hearts and lives because His Word is living and true. Whatever we do, it's not our ability, but our response to God's ability that counts. Because you see, with God, nothing is impossible. Several weeks ago, our 8-year-old granddaughter Brielle was coming towards me holding her baby brother, Bodie Paul. And she came to me and she asked, "Nana, when will you die?" I told her, "I don't know. It's God's choice. It's in His hands. But why do you ask me that now? What are you thinking about?" And she said, "Well, because I want Bodie to know you and remember you. My heart was touched, but it also brought to mind the importance of our legacy. How will you and how will I be remembered? It's been said you can give without loving, but you cannot love without giving. What impact are we making for the Lord in our families and to those around us? Can others see Jesus in you? For the Christian, you see, there's no retirement. There's just refirement for the Lord. And is He calling you to a new challenge in order to bless you and to give Him the glory? Because obedience does bring blessing. When I served on the Iowa Board of Missions, I sat next to an elderly Lutheran missionary. And he said to me, "Linda, there will be many good people who won't be in heaven." And I've thought about that comment from that missionary many, many times. And Pastor Norm, you see, was correct. There is a dividing line, and the decision is ours individually to make. This is an issue of our heart. But always remember that God is a God of second chances, and He's a God of mercy and grace. You can make a U-turn in your life and go back to the basics. You go back to His Word and see Jesus. Romans 10:9, that if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord, and you believe in your heart that God raised Him from the dead, you will be saved. You see, Augustana Academy did make a difference in my life. And my heart is humbled receiving this recognition and having the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I give thanks to my husband Wes and to our family for their continued love and ongoing support. I thank all of you because the Academy's legacy lives through each one of you. To the faculty and the staff in attendance, I thank you because I did see Jesus at the Academy, and because I saw Him, I began to grow in faith, and I now have a personal relationship with Him. And to my friends, to the class of 1962, I thank God for each one of you, and I thank Him for giving us the unique opportunity to grow up together at the Academy. Now may we continue to grow spiritually and personally in Jesus, so that as believers we can all look forward to the wonderful heavenly reunion that is to come, and to hear His words, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." To God be the glory, great things He has done. And Colossians 2 verses 6 and 7 sums it up very well for all of us tonight. It reads, "So then, just as you received Christ Jesus as Lord, continue to live in Him, rooted and built up in Him, strengthened in the faith as you were taught, and overflowing with thankfulness." Thank you.